Hello, I'm Amandeep Kaur. I'm going to present my project presentation on the topic of expense detail system. It is done by Rajveer Singh and me, Amandeep Kaur. So the contents, the things that we follow in the presentation are problems and motivations, the main functional requirements, which includes new user, login page, add and view expense, user logout. There are some design patterns, which are template design pattern, factory method pattern. Then comes software development tools. There are some classes and deployment diagrams that we will discuss. At the end, there is a practical demonstration of the application that we'll do at the end. So let's start with the problems and motivations. So initially, what problems people used to face? Initially, it was very hard to deal with the technology as there were several formalities to follow with the management of the company in order to reimburse the money spent on the recreational activities. Moreover, it took several months to get the money back spent on company party or the cab charges. Nowadays, the technology has given birth to the easier procedure to claim the amount from the management. Besides this, some company offers the official trips which are sponsored by the company itself. On top of that, claiming the vacation expenditure from company takes time. An appointment with the manager, it also takes time. Like first claiming the procedure, then appointment with the manager, explaining all the details. So this scenario needs an online platform where user can sit anywhere in order to claim the amount that he incurred for the business purpose. Therefore, the reimbursement process takes 6 to 5 business days to get credited on the account, which results in unbalancing the saving account of the employees as we discussed. So, what are the motivations that encourages us? Firstly, the flaws in the previous system encourage us to propose a system that would be built online, which would reduce certain steps while claiming the amount. And without interrupting the personal and professional life, an employee can sit anywhere in order to claim that incurred money. So, this can reduce human efforts, but also the employee can directly contact the financial manager who will be there in the claiming department with the help of this application, resulting in motivating them to do work efficiently, by which the employees who work late night can have an opportunity to claim expenditure anytime online. There are some functional requirements which are creating a new user, or it can also be called as user registration, user login, add expense, then view the added expenses, then user logout. Firstly, new user registration. Here we create a new user. So I have pasted a screenshot here which includes all the credentials of the new user. Then an employee can sign up here. So this section includes a registration of the new user or employee who has incurred the amount or wants to request for reimbursement. So this proposed system allows employee to register himself for claiming the money that he incurred by creating his login ID in order to access the claim account. Then comes user login. Here, the main login page after registration, the page will read, there will be a link that is back to the login. In the same session, a user can log in to the expense detail system. So it requires username and password. So after clicking to the login button, the user can redirect to the add expense. So here it is written that while creating a new user, the validation is checked. The validation is checked at the registration and the user login both, which would identify the redundancy error in recognizing the identity of the username. For example, if a user has already added while registering, he has already added the used email ID. So it would obviously create an error. So a message will be reflected that his email ID already exists. So it will notify the user that he is using the used email ID. Moreover, during login, if a user enters wrong credentials like username and password, then also there will be a message which would notify user that he is entering the wrong username or password. So here it is, we discussed, in addition to this, every user has unique email address which will be checked for every user or an employee for creating new user login credentials. However, it would print a message if the credentials entered already exist, as we discussed. Then comes ad expense. So this is the page of the ad expense. Suppose I work late. There can be like a project release in my company, so I had to stay late night. So the extra expenses that I incurred on myself, for example, the dinner I spent some money on that. That is claimable amount. So I can claim here. So in this screenshot, it is showing that expense detail is late dinner, and the amount is $30 I have entered. And then I'll click to the submit button, which would add the claiming amount, which would add the expense. Same thing is written here. The login page would redirect the user or employee to the expense detail page, where an employee can enter the expenses spent which are to be claimed from the organization, along with the description of the expenses that I added late dinner. The expense limit for a manager and subordinate is different, which would restrict some users. There is a limit for the adding claimable amount. For the manager and the subordinates, it's the different limit is there. So, which can be claimed by the higher authorities. Then there comes view expense. In the view expense, like the view after adding the submissions, we can view the submissions by a single user. So this is showing the list of saved expenses by a single user. Previously, I added train ticket. Recently, the screenshot previously I showed, it was of late dinner. So the late dinner is the recent added expenses that is showing in the form of list, along with the expense ID. The detail is there, amount is there, and obviously the created date, when it is created. So there will be proof of that when it is created and at what time it is created. It is also mentioned here. So the proposed system allows to view the total expenses submitted by a single employee, which would clear the details for future reference, and obviously it will be saved as a record for the future references. The added expense by a single user can be retrieved in the form of a list, which is viewed by clicking on the View Submission tab. Then last is user logout. So user can log out from this expense after adding and viewing all the submissions. So the session can be invalidated by logging out, which is at the right topmost corner of the screen. After that, the contact details of an employee can be retrieved from the portal in order to make more conversation in case, after adding the expenses, in case if the financial manager wants more clarification or more verification on the expenses that an employee has made. So there is an email ID of the registered employee and contact number. So further conversation can be carried out by using either email ID or contact number. Generally, email ID is preferred for the conversation. The design pattern that is used in the software development and the software. Actually, what is design pattern first? So it is used to represent the occurring problem that uses reusable solution in order to build acceptable solution to the users. The used design pattern are the design patterns that we used for sys template, factory, and facade. Let's discuss first template. This technique is followed in which the code is reused in the program. So we use template design pattern when the user wants to create an account with the expense detail system. Then the sign-up controller verifies the email address, username, and password which were previously not used. So it verifies the credentials of the user. Moreover, this controller validates information from the file named user.dao, which gets the data from the database and revert back to the same controller, which checks the information that are valid or not. On the other hand, the login controller, another controller, uses the same function which is defined in the file named user.dao to validate the login details. So at the registration time and the login time, validation is checked and they use the same function which is written in user.dao. So therefore, the reusability of the code is implemented, which refers to the template design pattern. So here is the class diagram of the template pattern. Sign up controller, login controller, they use the same function of user.dao, which is so information is retrieved from the expense details. Factory method pattern. It is a creational pattern in which it is dealt with the problem of initializing new object without describing its specific class that would be created. So in our proposed system, the expense controller ensures the loose coupling of the classes add expenses, which results in easy availability of the features to be implemented in the program. So there is a diagram, class diagram of this. Here, there is a superclass that is user.java. So the username and the password of the superclass is being used by the base class that is login.java and the signupcontroller.java. So here the factory method is implemented in this way. Third is a facade design pattern. It is very commonly used design pattern in the object-oriented programming. So I'm just giving the brief introduction of this. Here we have used this facade design pattern in order to make SQL connection queries to more secure. This is due to the fact that we added connection in different files. Therefore, just the variable names of the database connection can be used after. This is done in order to hide the database information like root name and password. So that's why we have used here facade design pattern. Then software development tools. Many software development tools are there to build the proposed system. Here we use the latest versions of Eclipse. Firstly, the Eclipse, that's 2020-03. Eclipse is an IDE, which is integrated development environment, and it acts as a platform for writing programming languages where we write code in order to build an application. There are more too as well. Second is Tomcat server, which is an application server, and it is a product of Apache, which is an open source server to implement the JSP or Java technology. It is a Java application server for servlets in which we can run Java code. Thirdly, the database we used at MySQL 1.1.18, which is also a latest version. It is a database server which uses structured query language in order to store data in the relation database management system, which is an open source database. Then here comes the deployment diagram. It is actually how the proposed system is deployed, how the logical architecture is implemented. So it is showed in the deployment diagram. The proposed system is hosted by two types of server. One is application server and other is database server, which is also defined in the logical architectural design. The client device can use any of the web browsers, like any Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Safari, in order to access the application system, which is connected to the application server, and then it is followed by the database server. It can be explained with the help of a diagram. Here, the client or the user device, it uses any like Internet Explorer browser, Google Chrome or Safari. On all these, it is accessible. So it uses do and get and post method of HTTP. So it sends HTTP request to the application server, which is directly connected to the database server. So here it verifies the information. After verifying, and it retrieves the data from the database. It reverts back the query to the response in the form of HTTP response to the client. So this is the actual deployment diagram. Then the last is a practical demonstration of the software. So we did this practical demonstration by using OBS tool, which is open broadcasting software. In this software, we can make audio presentation. So the expense detail systems live demonstration will be carried out by Rajbir Singh, my team member.
Uh, Hello, this is Rajbir Singh. So now I will show you, I'm going to show you the live project presentation of my project. So we have created a project named Expense Detail System. So this project is currently running on our local host, like we are just developed the software. So it's on my local host in order to run locally on my laptop. So firstly, the user needs to create or sign up in the expense detail system in order to reimburse the charges. So this project is like if an employee do some overwork or like he needs to reimburse the charges like cab charges, dinner charges if he stays in the company like overtime. So firstly he need to create a user on the system like first name Rajbir Singh S and last name Sekhon SEQHN. We need to give the email ID because this one is the essential credential. And here is the username and password. Like I randomly select the password. So on clicking on sign up button, the email ID already exists because the same email ID already exists. The user with the same email ID already exists in on this software. So we need to try with a different one like Rajbir S, Sekhon, and I'm using email ID just a different one. Uh, on clicking sign up button, the user should be created successfully. Oh, this time username already exists. So I need to like password this one. So user created successfully. So now I'm going to back to the login page in order to log in this system by using the username and password. So I already used the previous username and password. Previous, I want to log in with the previous user. So it's already installed in my browser's cookies. So I directly logged in. So here logged in successfully. So if supposedly a person stays late in the night, so he needs to go to home by using a cab. So the price of that cab is $30. He wants to submit by clicking on a submit button. Yeah, expense details saved successfully. He submitted the details of expense successfully. In order to see the all the submissions made by the same user, he needs to go to on a view submission button. So on click of a view submission, there here is the submissions of all the submissions of the same user. So here is the latest one. It's showing the date as well. So if the reimbursed charges is like more than the expectation like 400 or $500, so the manager or finance manager needs to contact to the employee. So here is the contact details of employee like email ID and his mobile number. So this is all about our project. And here is the logout button. By clicking on logout button, the session goes invalid and the software redirect to the login page. So yeah, it successfully redirect to the login page. This is all about our project, and I hope so. This will give benefits to small companies where these systems are not used yet. Thank you.